and playing our stock music in the background while I listen to you guys.
You got to get immersed.
Yeah.
That Unversed Cast and vibes.
I've got my list of games I played last year on my phone with some detailed notes on Sonic Superstars. And, so I think we're ready to start, my friends.
As am I.
All right.
Am not.
You're not?
I am.
Okay.
Well, I do have to do this first.
What was
we can
that?
start in earnest. That's the Yoda death from Lego Star Wars.
Hey, Exo.
Yes?
What do you call somebody with no body and no nose?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
Somebody?
He played
Somebody
the
once
fucking
told
rim
me
shot.
That you had a boyfriend that looked like a girlfriend?
Well, we all know that Ryan does look a thing like Jesus.
And I do talk like a gentleman.
That's true. Ladies, all 5 of you, if you date Ryan, he'll treat you like a queen. Just ask his girlfriend.
Ladies, all 5 of you, no. I'm sorry, but this man is spoken for.
Oh, yeah, that's why I just said your girlfriend could tell them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying, man is a Class A gentleman.
You know what? Both of y'all are too.
No,
Yeah.
Why did we get divorced?
Well, because you gave me back the ring pop. Or you couldn't finish it. I don't remember.
It had to be done.
Man, no loyalty.
These hoes ain't loyal. Anyway, we're here for the 2023 Game of the Year podcast. And, I think I could speak for all of us that this is probably the best year in gaming that I can remember.
Definitely one of them.
Yeah, I think I enjoyed it more than 2017, maybe. It's close.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely the best year since we've been doing the show. It's since 2016.
Yeah, I'd go as far to say that.
And it's funny because if you go back to our 2022 podcast, I was like, yeah, what the hell is even coming out next year? And then immediately Pizza Tower and Hi-Fi Rush both came out in January, and I was like, oh, I guess we're starting off strong here. But we've got a lot to talk about, so this year we're going to be doing this in 2 sessions, which means...
Is anyone else intimidated by this? Or is it just me?
Well, you should be, because I'm about to bring up the fanfiction list.
I feel like as if I'm looking at a giant mountain, and it's like we have to climb it, and I don't know if I'm ready for it.
I mean, we've done this before. We got through 3 hours of Sonic Frontiers, and we can get through this.
Yeah, but this is there was a lot. This year was really good, and the thing is that it didn't stop. It just did, things just kept coming out, and it was almost too good. You know what I mean? Where it felt like it was impossible to catch up. Or am I crazy?
No, I felt like there were many points at which I felt like I was drowning in games. There were some I just had to leave behind because I was not going to be able to get to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good problem to have, but it's just I didn't get to beat Final Fantasy 16, and I really wanted to. I didn't even get to play Hi-Fi Rush. So that made me sad because I owned the game. I just haven't played it yet because I've been playing other games.
Isn't that like the quintessential gaming moment? Is when you have games that you've paid for that you still haven't played?
Yeah.
Oh, you should see my Steam library, dude.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God. Yes.
The fucking winter sale that just ended we're recording this on the 7th. And the sale ended, I think, on the 4th. That fucked me up. That fucked me up so bad. Because everything was $5, $10. I'm like, oh yeah, don't mind if I do. Oops.
I'm never gonna play this. It's just gonna sit in my library. Yeah.
Well, hey, now that I got a Steam Deck, I'd be able to play it. Yeah, I can now lay down and just kind of go to town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we get started, I have brought 3 fanfictions to the podcast.
You can't do this
for the first time in a month. Now, Ryan, would you like to use one of your 3 skips?
Okay, we have a couple of things to unpack here. One, please no. Because there's a lot to talk about here.
We're doing this in 2 sessions. There's time, my friend.
Oh. Second of all, didn't you say that you had like a game prepared for me to where like if I win at a game that I wouldn't have to use one of my precious skips? Yes. What is this?
The idea was I was going to read you 3 fanfiction titles and descriptions, and you'd have to guess which one was the fake one. And if you guessed the fake one correctly, you'd get to skip for free. But if you guessed wrong, we'd have to read whatever you picked.
Oh.
But
okay.
I didn't have time to come up with a fake one, so I've just got 3. So you can decide whether to skip. Or I can read the descriptions to you, and you can decide.
Let's do the latter, I guess. Let me hear what's on the table before I decide to skip.
Okay. So, number 1, we've got Sheik's the Man. Everybody has a secret. Zelda enrolls at Hyrule Academy to prove that girls can be warriors, but she must go as Sheik. Soon Zelda develops a crush on her roommate Link, who thinks Malon is hot, who has feelings for Sheik, who is really Zelda. Number 2, the Heart Snatcher. Riku is at the end of his rope trying to find out the serial killer known as the Heart Snatcher. However, even when faced with dead ends, an opportunity arises that would lead him to finding the culprit, though it wouldn't be the answer he wanted.
Okay.
And then number 3 is Sonic's foot fetish.
Oh.
Sonic develops a strong liking towards human feet. He struggles mentally and philosophically trying to find a new meaning behind his kink.
That's it?
That's it! Just a reminder that none of these are fake.
Can I phone a friend?
Yes.
King, help. What do I do?
I don't want to read a fanfiction today. We can't do this.
I will use one of my but here's the problem is that if I use one of my skips, then we're forced to listen to
How
one
many
next
skips do you have?
I have 3.
That's not necessarily true. You could use 2 skips in a row.
Oh, but then I would only have 1 left.
When we come back tomorrow to record the rest of this.
Oh, but I can't do tomorrow.
I think it's worth using skips on the Nightmare cast that we're doing, like, in terms of length. I think it's worth it.
Okay. All right. I'm using my skip. All
right. Ryan has used 1 of his skips. Michael, put up an animation. And I'm not going to forget this. I'm keeping track of it in my brain. All right. In that case, let's get started, everybody. And I'm keeping that all in. And if you guys have a problem with it, remember that you have timestamps.
You gotta play like the Double Jeopardy music or whatever.
I'll play that music from the 1,000-Year Door when the Thwomp is asking you questions.
Yeah.
All right. So where should we start? Because there's lots of games, and I assume we want to save our favorites for last, which would be in the next session.
I'll talk about one of my least favorites.
Yes, Let's start with least favorites and stuff we played this year that isn't 2023, if applicable.
Do we want to talk about the stuff that didn't come out in 2023? Because there's, again, too much.
I mean, like, I'm looking at, I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking at my list and I'm just only seeing like 15 games. 15 games.
Well, that's 50. Okay, yeah, that's 15 games. And I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, I'm looking at 14.
Yeah.
So 15 plus 14 plus whatever King has.
I've played, of only things that came out this year, I played like 25.
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to talk about
I could dedicate
a
a little time to some things that I played that weren't from this year, although there weren't many. So
yeah. I played the Xenoblade trilogy, the Gears trilogy, and the Pikmin trilogy before 4 came out this year.
Nice.
So wait, I did want to...
you played through all... That's right, you did play through all 3 Xenoblades.
Yes.
I'm down to dedicate some time to Xenoblade, always.
I will figure it out. Ryan, it's your turn first, so why don't you start?
Okay, so the first game that I played this year, and I think it was one of the first games that came out this year, was Forspoken. Yeah. Yeah.
I did not play it. So
because like flashback to when the PS5 was revealed, Square Enix showed off a game. It was like Project like Athia or something like that. And I remember like we did the podcast talking about the PS5 reveal. I talked about this game and I said that looked really cool. So I got the game despite everyone saying that it's not that great. But I bought it because, hey, I was looking forward to this game. How bad could it possibly be? And it wasn't as bad as people were saying. Because some people were saying it was dog shit, poo-poo nunu garbage. And it really isn't.
Nice.
The problem is that... Huh?
Nice tack reference.
But, like, it's just kind of... It is a game that has a really cool idea. It is a game that has a really cool combat system, but like it doesn't know what to do with it. It's like you got like 100 million zillion pavilion spells, because like that's pretty much the entire game, is that like you don't really have melee attacks or like sword and shield. Like everything is magic, and it's really cool.
And it's all
like the combat.
It's all from the Magic Ring, voiced by Steve Merchant, right?
Yeah, and it's cool, but like it just there's nothing really besides that to do. I remember like playing it and I was thinking like this would be a lot better as like a Bayonetta or a Devil May Cry kind of game, where if it was more linear, more focused, and like just focus the game around that. But instead it's an open world game. And there's literally nothing here. You have like these, for lack of a better comparison, like the shrines from Breath of the Wild. It's like these little areas that you go, you clear like a little mini dungeon, but these are literally just hallways where you run straight, you fight a gauntlet of enemies, you run straight, you do like a zipline thing, you run straight, you fight a boss, and then you're done.
So it's like Kingdom Hearts 2.
If Kingdom Hearts 2 wasn't good.
I remember most of the dungeons in that game being hallways.
Yeah, but like at the same time, there were still like moments and like little mini games that you did. And this game doesn't have any of that. Yeah. There's like one town in the game and it feels lifeless, you know? And it makes me sad in the sense to see that like the people who made Final Fantasy 15, I think they worked on this game. Is that right?
I don't know.
I think I heard that from somewhere.
Yeah.
But this was the game that kind of tanked them. And I'm like, if they were to like ever make like a sequel or like a spiritual successor to this game, if they made it like smaller budget and just, again, like made it more of like a spectacle fighter, I think the game would be received pretty well. But like on the whole, it's just kind of like this middle of the road game that doesn't ever do anything. It's more of just like an idea. So I don't know. That made me sad. And that's really all I have to say about it.
Well, most of the discussion I saw of this game centered more around the tone and the characters and the dialogue, especially. I didn't really hear much discussion of the actual gameplay. Not to my recollection, anyway. What's your opinion on that?
Well, regarding the gameplay, again, it's really more so it's just that there's not really much to discuss. And regarding the main character and the way how she's written, I kind of understood what they were going for, because in the beginning, and I didn't know this going in because I wasn't really following this game. Like I saw the trailer, like the very first trailer when it was still like Project Athia, and I'm like, oh, that looks pretty good. And then it came out, I'm like, oh. But I was not expecting this to be an isekai and the character to be from New York.
Yeah,
so I'm like,
that as well. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, so it's like you got this character talking like she belongs in a Joss Whedon movie. It's like, oh, okay. It feels weird, right? But I kind of understood what they were doing in the sense where it's like, in the place that she is from, she is a nobody. She always gets like the shit end of the stick. So, she's coming into this new fantastical world and she's like, she's jaded and she's miserable and she's like aggressive and everything. But you see the kind of environment that she was brought up in, that she was abandoned as a baby. It's like, okay, no, I understand it. But like the problem is that she never really changes or develops, It's like she always has like this sourpuss attitude. And it's like you go from your home, or not even your home. It's just like the place that you're from. Because she said it like so many times, like, oh, I don't have a home. I'm homeless, blah, 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 blah. And then you go to this fantastical world and people are treating you like the sequel to Jesus Christ. And you're still like miserable. And you're saying, oh, I don't want to be here. I want to go back to where I was a loser nobody and I didn't have magic powers. So like that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But there was also this point where I'm using this term loosely, but her friend, her granddad dies, and her granddad knew a way on how to like bring the main character back home. But instead of like comforting her friend or like consoling her or giving her time to grief, she's instead being like this really aggressive, like, oh, he was my one shot of getting out of here. I'm so fucking pissed. Fuckity fuck. Man, and now I'm stuck here. Fuck. She also curses a lot. And then her friend reasonably goes, dude, my granddad just died and you're making this all about you. What the fuck are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I kind of understood, I understood what they wanted to do. I do not think they landed it. Like, I don't think this was a good character at all. I don't know. And that was the point where I kind of realized that, like, I didn't really care for the game. Because, like, I was expecting to see some sort of development, but it just wasn't there. So, yeah, that's it.
All right.
It's just the writing is just immature and the character is immature and bleh. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It bummed me out.
All right. Well, who should go next?
See, the problem is that I didn't really play much that I would say I didn't enjoy. So like maybe the only thing was that I replayed Pikmin 2 and I hate that game. So and like Sonic Frontiers I wasn't too big on, but we already did a whole podcast. So like I don't know. I guess you can go, Michael.
Okay. Let's see. I have two kind of choices for disappointments. And that's really the worst I would call them, is disappointments.
Mm-hmm.
You guys want to hear about Detective Pikachu or Born of Bread first?
I forgot Detective Pikachu came out.
I guess Detective Pikachu. I don't even know what Born of Bread is.
It's a Paper Mario-like. We'll talk about it later, I guess.
Sounds breadful.
See, that's exactly the kind of dialogue that would be in that game, honestly. But, yeah, we'll talk about that. So, Detective Pikachu returns. I played this game for two reasons. One, I liked the first Detective Pikachu. It was a cute little game, and I've never played like Danganronpa or Ace Attorney or anything comparable. So to me, it was fine. And then number two, Tim Goodman is super hot in it, so I bought it immediately. So it's a direct sequel to the first game. They reference events of the first game constantly. It has nothing to do with the stupid movie, though they do make fun of the movie in the game. They're like, they made a movie about you solving the R incident. And I'm like, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Pikachu is voiced by the Airsoft Shop guy from Persona 5.
Yes.
Kaiji Tang is his name. He's also Dazai on Bungo Stray Dogs, the English dub, who is one of my favorite performances of all time, by the way, that Dazai. And Max Middleman was in that too, but never mind. So Detective Pikachu 2 was I would call it a mild disappointment. It has something in common with another game we're going to be talking about later, which I'm going to lay down a bet right now was Ryan's Game of the Year. I'm just going to do it. Sea of Stars is his Game of the Year.
It's actually Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life.
Is that a real game that exists?
Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life?
Yeah. Is that real?
Yes, it's a remake of Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. And it came out this year. But my Game of the Year is Sea of Stars.
We can't just spoil that right now.
Anyways, Detective Pikachu. What I liked about the first game and what carries over here is that they took advantage of the fact that it takes place in the Pokemon universe. And I'm not pronouncing it Pokemon, so get over it, comment section.
Thank you.
Like, because you have a
Who
talking...
really cares, honestly? If somebody cares about that, they need to find something better to do.
Detective Pikachu can interview Pokemon, so you can get witness testimony from other Pokemon in addition to humans, which means that Tim and the Pikachu can solve cases that nobody else can, because they can get observers that human detectives would miss. So it's kind of fun to... The game opens with like a jewel heist that you investigate, which was like a pretty good opening chapter. They added this new mechanic where you can ride certain Pokemon, and they have like an ability that they can like break down walls or see through walls for the shitty stealth sections. I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about this game because, like, the core game loop is essentially gather clues to answer some kind of question and then deduce the answer. And sometimes the answers are kind of obvious. Not all the time, but, like, sometimes I'm like, well, obviously this happened. But you have to go through the trouble of talking to everybody anyway. But it's also a game that's kind of targeted more towards kids, so it's fine, I guess. I think my big problem with it was the first Detective Pikachu game, to my recollection, had 8 cases, and this game only has 5. And it kind of ends abruptly. The secondary antagonist comes off like a drooling idiot in the final case, and it's like, dude, you've been had. Why don't you realize this? I thought you were smarter than that. Then the ending is sort of epic, like there's an epic fight between and spoilers. And then, because sort of like the motivation in the first game for Tim to team up with the Pikachu is that his dad went missing, which I think may have been in the movie. I think he was Ryan Reynolds in the movie for some reason.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Which was left on a sort of quasi cliffhanger at the end of the 3DS game. I was like, people's memories get erased so they don't remember what happens. So you come into the second game, Tim still hasn't found his dad, and then there's like a weird plot about the bad guy needing to resurrect by having his comatose dad and the Pikachu in a tank to extract energy from them or something. I don't know, I'm rambling. I guess the game was shorter than I was expecting. It felt like the cases weren't as good. Like the second one can't even really be called a case. The third one was probably the highlight because Detective Pikachu gets arrested and put in jail for a bit. And so you get to run around in jail as Pikachu interviewing other Pokemon inmates.
That's what I want from Pokemon.
Yeah. I remember the plot of the first game being a little bit more intricate and having more twists and turns and having a more satisfying third act twist. And I don't know, it just kind of felt abrupt at the end. It's like the ending of Star Trek Voyager, where it felt like the ending moment could have come at any point and it would have felt the same. I'm not explaining this very well, but it wasn't super great. I was a little disappointed in it, and I was looking forward to it because I did like the first one.
I remember when this got revealed, and I knew just by looking at it that something seemed off about it.
Yeah.
It looked weird.
The game does feel budgeted, definitely.
Mm-hmm. And I liked the first one, but for some reason I saw this.
Oh, I didn't know you played it.
Yeah. I think we talked about, like, you and I think we talked about it.
To my recollection, only I had played it, I guess. But please, go on.
Nah, I was saying that, like, I remember liking it enough, and I don't know, I guess it always felt like a one and done kind of thing. It's like, did we really need a sequel, you know? And it's like, oh, hey, cool. If we got one, that's fine. But, like, what they did, I don't know. It just looked off. I saw that, I'm like, oh, no, that ain't for me. I'm good out here.
I will say this, there was a lot of discussion of the graphics. Like, that seemed to be the only... I feel like I was the only one who played this game this year except Jam Shows. I'm pronouncing that right. He's a guy who's always in the comments section. So, like, most of the discussion I saw of Detective Pikachu was like, oh my god, the graphics look so bad. And to me, personally, for Switch, for like a budget game, they looked more than acceptable, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
There were some parts that looked worse than others, like there's this part where you're in a ruins type area that looked kind of crappy, but otherwise it was fine, and it looks better than what I've seen of Gen 8 and Gen 9, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, that's not hard.
I don't know why that was the focus of the discussion. Like, I feel like there are more legitimate criticisms to make of this game than just the graphics. I do have to give a special commendation to the Unversed Cast soundtrack in the game. It's like all this light jazz. Just like what is playing in the background right now, hopefully.
No, Michael, that's deathcore. What are you doing?
Don't pull the deathcore switch.
Yeah, so that was Detective Pikachu.
Well, actually, in that time, I thought of something to talk about, which is not a disappointment, but it is a game I did not finish. It was one of the first games I played in the year, and it's Fire Emblem Engage.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Fire Emblem, engage!
And I actually got quite far in it. But for whatever reason, I just didn't feel like I needed to finish it. But I think this wasn't like an anniversary for Fire Emblem, but it feels like a game that they wanted to come out on an anniversary because it has a lord from every single Fire Emblem that has come out. And by lord, I mean like basically the main character guy or girl. And so the whole idea is that it's like a more classically primed Fire Emblem in that they design it a little bit more. The story's kind of silly. It's more about like the map design is a lot harder. So it's more about like the combat. So what you get is like a less Three Houses-esque experience in the sense that the characters are a little bit less interesting and the story's like pretty generic, but it also harkens back to the GBA games that I played a bit of where the map design is a bit more like hardcore. So it was like a fun time, but I guess as somebody who really got into Three Houses, unfortunately it just isn't. The Fire Emblem core gameplay loop, I guess, while fun, is not my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's the main draw of the game. It just could not hold my interest to the end. But I do think I got some good stuff out of it. I like the soundtrack a lot.
Yeah, I heard from people who played it that the game is surprisingly good.
Yeah, well, that's why I would not describe this as a bad game. It was fun. I think that it probably would never be anyone's favorite Fire Emblem, if I had to guess. But
there's gonna be 20 people in the comments saying it's their favorite now.
Yeah.
The toothpaste lady is my waifu.
I like.
I only get bed hair in the red side of my hair.
There's some fun to be had in it. I like to meet all the lords. All the lords they're like characters, so they're not just like mechanics. You can talk to them and like bond with them if you want. Although with the lords, since they're like ghosts of past games, they don't have as many options like as the real characters do, but they're pretty, like, it's cool to like talk to Marth or whatever. I don't know, it's a decently fun time, but at the end of the day I didn't finish it. And I feel like if I had enjoyed myself more, I probably would have stuck it through and finished it, because I did quite a few chapters in it. I would say I got like 2/3 of the way through or something like that, but I just didn't feel compelled to push through to the end, and I don't know if I ever will return to it. That's the closest thing this year to a disappointment, quote unquote, that I had.
So what I heard about this game is two things. One, I heard it was in development concurrently with Three Houses.
That's the theory. I don't think anybody technically knows, but it would make a lot of sense if that was the case.
I don't know too much about Three Houses, except that there are three houses in it, and the character is a professor, and there's like a goddess in their head that is like a little worm or something, voiced by Morgana from Persona 5. And that there are like multiple routes, so you have to replay the game multiple times to see all the story.
The school is called Worm Academy.
Is it actually?
No, it isn't.
Okay.
You basically got it right, except Sothis is not a worm. She's just like
okay.
a girl.
My ex-boyfriend had like a little green worm on his TV. It was like a little stuffed animal, and he called it Sothis. So this whole time I thought Sothis was a worm.
Imagining that is amusing to me.
But yeah, like it was like huge, and I guess a lot of people got into it for the more, lack of a better term, Persona kind of gameplay
that's
elements.
The thing is that Three Houses was, if you ask a lot of hardcore Fire Emblem fans, because I did some deep dives into what veterans of the franchise think and all that. If you ask a lot of people who are into the gameplay side of Fire Emblem, Three Houses was a bit more like of a departure in the sense that it wasn't really as difficult or as engaging in the map design. Supposedly. I'm going off what people who are into the franchise have said. I don't really have a big frame of reference, to be honest, because I've played like Awakening and Three Houses, a little bit of Fates, and now Engage. So I don't really know, but having played both Engage and Three Houses, I can say that Engage kicked my ass way fucking more than Three Houses ever did. But I also personally wasn't going to Three Houses for that. I was going because I liked the characters, I liked role-playing as a professor. It was kind of cool. You know, you get to like teach your student who you also have to send out into battle and they can potentially die. So there's like a really cool dynamic there, I think. And yeah, I think it lifts a lot from Persona in that regard because it has like a calendar day system and you have to pick what you do on each day. So I think that was the biggest draw for people with 3 houses who were not previously into Fire Emblem was all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably what hooked me in. And it's still the most fun I've had with a Fire Emblem to date. So
yeah. Because the only Fire Emblem game I played is Awakening, and I wasn't really into it because it seemed like a generic. I only got to where I got up to the point where you go to the second continent, and then I stopped, which is supposedly where it gets interesting. I don't know. But up to that point, it seemed like there was big bad evil man who looks like Jafar who wants to raise a dragon, and Robin is his son, and Chrom dies at the beginning in a flash forward, then you flash back, and then there's like a guy who looks like Kefka from Final Fantasy VI as the king of paraplegia or whatever, and then and then the Emrin, the exarch of whatever the fuck, jumps off of the dragon statue.
The game.
It just seemed like a generic Gangrel is evil, go fight him or whatever, and then big bad evil Jafar man shows up. Valador, I think is his name. And then he's the bad guy now. So I don't know, like the story of 3 houses compared to that sounds like the premise sounds more interesting when you have like all of these factions that you kind of relate to.
The coolest thing about it is that what I always say to people to sell it is that there's a time skip that happens and then it stops becoming a school setting and it becomes a war setting.
Mm-hmm.
And the 3 houses are the ones at war, kind of. But I won't go into specifics, which means that the students that you have been teaching and or talking to throughout your like first half of the game, eventually you will have to go to war with and probably kill them, which is like an extremely interesting thing to make you have to do. And that I found that very compelling as well as a setting.
And then in Fire Emblem Engage, you have a man who pronounces potatoes weirdly. Or was it taters?
I love that. The way he says that.
That guy's actually a
so
good
funny.
actor. He was Sir Night-Eye in the MHA dub.
Oh, yeah.
And he's married to J. Michael Tatum. Which
That's
probably
cool.
means nothing to most of you because you watch subs. But whatever.
I watched the dub of MHA and I like it.
Okay, good.
I just have not watched the anime past season 3 because I read the manga, so I just didn't really feel like I needed to.
I remember you saying on Twitter that you would rather pick up Black Clover again than keep
Yeah,
reading
there
MHA.
was a point in the manga that I did not like very much. I think that there's a point in MHA where it drops down quite a bit. I've heard that it has gotten better since, so I'm going to have to catch up, but...
Alonzo was telling me that there was like a shitty editor pushing the... What do you call a manga author? There's like a word for it.
Mangaka?
A mangaka.
Mangaka, that the mangaka was being pushed by his editor to publish stuff faster before it was ready, and they got him a new editor now. I'm assuming it's a man.
I don't know about
I don't
that
know.
because stuff like that is never able to be confirmed, but I would not be surprised if that was happening because there was a point at which, I mean, a lot of people have issues with My Hero at certain points in the late arcs, but I would say there's a specific set of chapters that were just really strange and made some very strange narrative decisions that I did not jive with. Supposedly, it has gotten a lot better since, so I'd be curious to catch back up with it.
I think that was the last anime I tried watching. I kind of not even that I kind of fell out of anime. But like that was the last one that I watched, and I didn't finish it. I forgot where I left off. But
Did
like
you
I
get sick
remember
of them
liking
flashing back to the point where All Might says, "You too can become a hero"?
I think they were at a camp. Or
Oh,
something.
that part, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember liking it, but I just stopped, and I had no desire to ever watch it again. Nothing. I don't have anything negative to say about it. I thought the show was just fine, but I don't know.
I don't want to derail, but I was watching Jujutsu Kaisen last night.
Yeah, is that good?
It is pretty rad.
Yeah.
I'm in the second season, the Shibuya incident, the fabled Shibuya incident.
Okay.
It's pretty damn good,
Keep hearing stuff about
so I
that
recommend that.
King, did you get to go to Shibuya when you were in Japan?
Yes, I did.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I
was that
spent
like?
time in Osaka, Kyoto, and Tokyo.
Dude, I want to go
And I
to
also
Osaka.
visited Hiroshima for a day, and also went near Mount Fuji for a day. What is that place called? Hakone? Yeah.
Man,
Nice.
that's really cool.
So I saw it all.
I'm jealous.
I even saw where the Yakuza games take place in.
Oh, nice. You gotta
Because
be
my
John
girlfriend's a huge
Yakuza.
Yakuza fan. I am also a Yakuza fan, but she's even bigger than I am, so
Mhm.
Those are games you need to get into.
yeah.
And now we're talking about this and not game. So let's, I guess, is that all for Engage?
Yes.
All right.
It was not engaging enough. Clearly.
All right, Ryan, what do you got for us, buttface?
I mean, we're still talking about games that we found disappointing.
Yeah.
Because I got one that
I don't have any more, so you guys can go on.
because this is where it gets tricky, because this is a game that like literally everyone likes, and I feel
Oh.
out of pocket here.
I think I know what you're going to talk about, and
It's-
I
I
will
know
not
it-
disrespect you for it.
I know it's one of yours, like one of your favorite games this year.
Yeah, I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, I did not like Spider-Man 2.
hmm
And it's like, Forspoken was disappointing because it was something I thought that looked cool and it didn't live up to its potential, right? So that bummed me out. But this was a sequel to a game I really liked. It had Venom, who, I mean, off the get-go, I already had like some reservations about Harry Osborn being Venom. I didn't like the idea, and I still don't really care for it in this game. But Venom is one of my favorite characters just in fiction. I think he's a really fun character. And Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes, period, you know? So, you know, going in with different expectations, like I was really excited for this, and then I couldn't even bring myself to finish it because I kept getting bored.
Mhm.
And I don't want to say I was gaslighting myself into thinking the game was good, because I think that's a bit extreme. But I was definitely convincing myself that like, oh no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Because it really isn't. Like the combat's like really good. The web swinging is really good. I really like how they wrote Miles in this game. I thought Miles was a really cool character. But I just think that it's like these games like this one, and like even like the first Spider-Man to an extent, the God of War games, it just, I don't know if I could get behind these kind of games anymore, where it's like a lot of the focus, maybe not all of it, but a pretty sizable portion of it is focused on like the story building things, where you're walking in a straight line and characters are expositing towards you,
Mhm.
you know? Like, Exo, you said that one of your biggest pet peeves in games are unskippable cutscenes, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Mine is the walkie-talkie sections. I think these are like unskippable cutscenes with extra steps.
Yeah.
Because you really can't skip these sections. It's like, I remember I got to a part in the game very early on where Harry's kind of guiding you around a lab, and you are walking super slow, and then you walk in a straight line for a while, and then you talk to this lady who's talking to you about bees. I'm like, okay, cool, fascinating. And then he walks you on the other side of this factory, is like, hey, play a connect the dots minigame so you can learn about how to grow plants. And I'm like, okay, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And I felt like as if there were just way too many moments like that, where it's like you're not playing as Spider-Man. You're playing as Peter Parker in a flashback, Peter Parker in a lab, Peter Parker in a kitchen, Mary Jane in an apartment, or in a facility, or like a camp or whatever, or Miles in a school.
Do they
And it's
still
just-
have the Mary Jane stealth sections in this?
Yeah. And they're not, like, people say that they're good, but like I did one where I was literally sprinting towards people and just jumping on them with a taser. And I'm like, this isn't good. You know? I know some people like these sections, but it's not what people come to these games for. And if we're going to talk about the Insomniac leaks, you know, this game apparently cost more to make than any Spider-Man movie to date.
Really?
I have to wonder, like, why would they spend so much money and put in so much work and effort? Because sections like these don't make themselves.
Yeah.
You know? It takes a lot of manpower. It takes a lot of money and time to do. So it's like you're making content that you know people are not going to, at the very least, to be nice, they're not going to like it as much as the core game. A lot of people just straight up don't like it. people like me fucking hate it, you know? So it's like, why would they dedicate so much time for that when you could be, you know, having the information that's being told in these moments and have it be done in a cutscene? You know what I mean? Would have made the game feel a little bit shorter, sure, but it would have made the game feel a lot less bloated, I'd argue. Because, I mean, that's kind of just what it feels like. It feels like as if it's padding.
Mm-hmm.
And also, again, just like the characterization of Venom, I just wasn't a huge fan of. I think the way how they wrote him, he kind of just felt like, oh, I am Monster Man, and I am manipulating Harry Osborn into doing the things that I am doing, when that's not really the point of Venom. Venom was more so about how Eddie Brock and this monster symbiote are on the same page, and that's kind of why they work. That's why they have that symbiotic relationship. Like, I remember seeing a part in the game where, like, Harry is, like, begging for the symbiote to be taken off of him, and I'm like, well, that's not how it's supposed to work, you know? Because, like, if the match isn't 100%, like, spot on, then the symbiote just consumes the host, and then he dies. So, like, Harry would have died in that situation, but that's just, like, me being a fanboy right there. I can, you know, acknowledge that. And also, again, like, the game was just, like, super broken. Like, I hear people talk about the game, and they're like, oh, you know, I had a couple of glitches here and there, but, like, it didn't really bother me that much. But, like, I was clipping through the floor. I had soft locks. I had hard crashes. I had broken animations. I had, like, the title screen bug out many times. You know, I never had Spider-Man turn into a cube. And there just came a point where, like, where...
That was pretty funny.
Where something happened, and I took a step back, and I thought, I paid $70 for this, you know? And it's like, we look back, you know, 2020 when Cyberpunk came out, we ripped CD Projekt Red to pieces. I mean, maybe not us, but like the gaming community ripped them to shreds because they released a broken game. Spider-Man isn't as broken as that game, but like, how many times has this happened where a game released that's in a broken state, but yet we tear them a new asshole when they're also working, like they have to make sure that their game works on multiple platforms of like varying power. It's like, oh, you have to make sure that you have to have this game be on like a high-end PC and also the potato that is the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, Mortal Kombat 1's another game that came out this year. And then everybody was dogging on the Switch port, you know, because it wasn't a good port, apparently. But yet, we give Sony and Insomniac a pass when this $70 PS5 exclusive, like they only had like one platform they had to focus on. We give them a pass. We think it's funny. When if this was anyone else, we wouldn't do that. We'd be ruthless, you know?
There did seem to be some console war type bullshit going on.
There was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that on Twitter a lot.
Oh, yeah. And again, it's not to say that Spider-Man 2 is as bad as any of the games that like I've mentioned before, but it's like, maybe we shouldn't be doing that to begin with. Maybe we need to take a second to realize, okay, yeah, no, people are working. People are under like a lot of weird conditions. It's really hard. So maybe don't dunk on Hello Games when they release No Man's Sky and it's, you know, a broken game. Maybe it's the same with I can
get behind that, but that's never going to happen.
No, it's never going to happen. The other game that came out that was a Microsoft exclusive,
Starfield.
Redfall. Oh, you said Starfield. I said Redfall. But it's like, just take a second to realize
Redfall?
that. Huh?
I've never heard of that game at all.
Yeah, I know what Redfall is, but I'd never played it.
I've never played it either because it just didn't look that good. Spoiler, I guess it wasn't.
What I can say is that the Insomniac leak showed me firsthand that people are ruthless when it comes to talking about game developers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get definitive hard proof that there are problems going on in Insomniac. There's like, they're saying they absolutely must make the next Spider-Man game a certain budget or they're not going to be able to maintain it anymore. Because supposedly, at the time the leak happened, Spider-Man 2 wasn't even breaking even yet because of how big its budget was.
Mm-hmm.
And the game still released with, I would say, more problems than you would expect from a AAA release, I would admit. And you can tell they poured so much time into it and clearly a lot of money. I think it was like, I don't even remember the figure, but there's more money than they have ever spent making a game before.
Yeah.
I'm confident in saying that. I think it was like 3 times the budget of the original Spider-Man. And you play Spider-Man 2 and it doesn't, and I don't say this disparagingly, but it doesn't immediately show that it was that much more expensive. It obviously went to stuff that wasn't as readily apparent unless you're making the game. And I think the problem with that in regards to the rest of the industry is that that the other big companies probably have similar problems going on with their dev studios. And I think even in that leak, Sony is talking about how they're going to have to downsize Insomniac or close one of their studios, just straight up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's disheartening. It really is. It's very disheartening. And I really wish that, it is funny to see like the spider cube on Twitter. And I don't think it's even bad to laugh at stuff like that. More so, I think people need some fucking empathy in regards to talking about like glitches and on like games that released in a less than ideal state. Because at the end of the day, the reason that they release that way, I think we should aim at other figures other than the people who slaved away making it.
Yeah.
Because clearly they don't want it to be that way.
And it's like, it kind of reminds me, I mean, slightly off topic, similar idea though, but it's like, you hear how these AAA movies in Hollywood, they can't break even. It's like every single movie is like in the hundreds and hundreds of millions, but yet, all the movies that came out this year like underperformed like shit, or most of them did. And it's like the reason why is because the budgets are so fucking huge that they can't make that money back. Doesn't really matter how well they do. Spider-Man 2 is in the same boat. Like, I don't think Spider-Man 2 sold like, it couldn't have sold like shit.
It didn't sell. It definitely did not sell badly.
Yeah.
It sold pretty damn well. But yet it
couldn't break even. What the fuck are we even doing this for?
This is definitely a year where, as many great games as there were, it was also an alarming year for like, I think like some figure like around 6,000 devs got laid off, and like you can see that AAA budgets are ballooning past the point of realistic, to the point where it just feels like we're approaching a very bad spot for the industry, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm. I think we're on the wake of another crash. We have to be at this point.
At least the AAA one. I mean, indies will probably be fine, but like...
Yeah, that problem would probably trickle over to them, but I'm not an economist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because...
obviously they would experience some problems, but they don't have the same amount riding on them as like Sony does. Where if Sony starts struggling, they might just close their dev studio entirely.
Mm-hmm. They already did that with Sony in Japan.
Yeah, they did do that.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I didn't end up finishing my game design program. I got 3 years into it and got just a taste of what this industry is like.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, the school I went to was the subject of a Stephanie Sterling video called The College That Teaches Crunch, so that should probably give you a good idea of what it was like there.
Mm-hmm.
I was never doing enough work. I was never doing it fast enough. And it felt like there were a lot of really talented people around me that it felt difficult to keep that motivation going when there was so much work on your plate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I can't really go into any more detail than that. If I had finished it, I would have been going into the job market in a year where all these layoffs were happening. So that would have been my reward for finishing my degree. So I guess I dodged a bullet there. But it's just, I've been in the trenches, so to speak, not at a professional studio, but I did work on game teams with programmers and a sound designer and stuff. And I had deadlines, and we had to make prototypes and, like feature complete builds and content complete builds. And I had to do solo projects. So I've had a taste of that, and it is really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel underappreciated, and you feel like your work is never good enough. And it's just hard to keep that motivation up unless if you just really love games and can deal with all the hard stuff. And I was just one of the people who couldn't do that. It was just too much for me.
Yeah, I actually, I was catching up with a former partner of mine a few years ago, and she was in the, what was it? It was like, it wasn't localization, but it was like bringing the games over and making them work on American consoles. So she wasn't even on like the dev team. She was just like making the games work. And she was saying a lot of the same shit that you were saying just now. Yeah. And it's like, if it's bad for that, just making the games work on a console, like making sure like it's printed on the right discs and all that, imagine what it is being on the front fucking lines, Yeah. That is insane. I think this year, as good as it was, there is, it's a bittersweet kind of thing in the sense it's like we got like a lot of really good games, but at the same time, it's also kind of a wake-up call where it's like you see firsthand like what the cost of these good games are. And it's something that we don't really ever think about. So
that's because the people who publish these games don't want us to think about it.
Yeah.
They want to keep it all under wraps.
Shit's like this important.
I'm sure Sony
which
was
is why it took a
fuming
fucking...
at these leaks.
It took a leak, which, by the way, was a sucky leak because it leaked like passport photos and credit card info and shit of the employees, because it was like some kind of dark web ransomware thing going on. Like it was like a hacker who was holding Sony to ransom for that info, and then Sony didn't pay any money or even really talk to them, so they just released it on the internet.
Life sucks.
Yeah.
This world we live in sucks.
It could be better.
But regardless, King, do you have anything you wanted to say about Spider-Man? I know you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it is. I ranked all the games this year because I thought it'd be fun.
Okay.
And that was, I put Spider-Man 2 at like number 9, I think.
They spent millions of dollars on this game and they could only get to number 9.
Yeah. There were a lot of good games this year. I was saying when I was ranking them that anything in my top 10 at one point during the year I considered could be my game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a high honor to be in my top 10. But I like Spider-Man 2, you know? It's like, I think maybe the reason that I put it at number 9 is because it is kind of it's an expected sequel. I don't think it really did anything super original that blew me away, but I think that the stuff that it was able to consolidate from the Spider-Man mythos, as it were, was pretty cool. I think they did some really cool stuff with it. I think that the game is a lot faster. The web swing is straight up a lot faster than it was in the original, and so is the combat. And the combat feels like, in the original game, it was like fine enough, you know, it was fun. But in this game, they give you so much more to work with that, and they make it a lot harder because they give you a parry, that it feels like exhilarating to fight in Spider-Man 2. It's like really fun, actually. It was one of my favorite things to do in the game, was swing around and like stop a crime, because it just felt fun to beat the shit out of people.
What I experienced, because I played the first game this year, I did not play it when it came out, with Tom Holland looking Peter Parker instead of whatever Peter Parker.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I experienced, because I 100% the whole game, I didn't get all the best ranks or anything, but I did all the missions, all the crimes, everything. What I experienced was, it was really easy to break the combat with webs. Just get people up against a wall and web them in place, and then they're done. Is that the case in the second one?
I think that what they do in this game is they inherently give you less tools, like less gadgets, because you technically have 8 with each, but you can only have 4 at a time based on what mode you're working with. And you can still web people up against the wall and stuff, but they're a lot more aggressive. The opportunities to do that are more scarce, and they just send a lot more people after you as well.
Okay.
In general, I felt like I was fighting more than I was gadgeting.
Okay.
I would say.
There was a moment in this game, again, very early on, because I admittedly, I did not make it very far. I got the black suit, and then after a while, I just realized, But there was a moment in the game that kind of made me, I got the same kind of reaction that I did when I watched Venom Let There Be Carnage, where Cletus Cassidy hacks into the CEI by sending his symbiote through the Wi-Fi.
What?
That was I loved that. That was so funny.
There's this thing got any Wi-Fi.
There was like a turd in the wind.
There is a moment like that in this game, or at least I got a similar reaction where Miles' friend, I can't remember his name, he's on the phone with Peter.
Yeah.
He was like, "Hey, Peter, just so you know, your web shooters are also 3D printers."
Yeah, that was funny.
Here, build a drone. I'm like,
that was funny.
I'm like,
I'm
what?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the web shooters aren't
fit a 3D
now
printer
3D
in-
printers. It's like
That was funny.
the suspension of disbelief. And then there's
It's
that.
already ridiculous that someone that young could build any of this crap.
To be fair, like, this is Spider-Man that's like 8 or 9 years into his career, so I get the more.
I'm talking about the other guy, the Miles' friend. He's only supposed to be like 16 or something, right?
No, I think he's in college, right?
Yeah.
Miles.
Is he? I don't actually know.
I don't know. I don't want to be a nitpicky asshole, but like this was more. I really don't. I really don't. But like this game for me was like death by 1,000 cuts. You know, so many small things that just kind of built up to like this thing where I couldn't. I don't know. I already said my piece on it. I'm sorry.
Wasn't one of the villains a muscular gay man who runs around shirtless?
What?
Craven the Hunter, I think, is his name.
Oh, Craven. Oh.
Is he gay?
No, I was just
I don't know
saying
why I
that.
didn't think of Craven when you said that.
Oh, that was my initial thought.
Wonder
But
why.
Well, I was like, who's shirtless in this game? But then Craven definitely fits that bill. Dude, Craven actually was my favorite villain in the game. Because I actually, too, was not a big fan of what they do with Venom. I wouldn't say I disliked it, but I think the third act has the most problems of any part of Spider-Man 2, in that it feels a bit rushed. But Craven, I love Craven. Craven is the type of character who is, he wants to fight you, and he gets like a sick pleasure out of it, and he cares for nothing else except fighting the strongest.
Mhm.
And that type of character, also Xenos in Final Fantasy XIV,
Also Goku.
I get a kick out of. Well, specifically if they're evil. You know, Goku's fine and all, but like, I get a kick out of it when they want to fight me. Because it's just hilarious. I love it so much. And Craven is like, actually feels really fucking threatening, and he does some stuff that actually shocked the hell out of me that I was not expecting them to pull the trigger on. So he ends up being really cool, I think, and the fight that you have with him is awesome as well. I think Craven was a huge success.
King, have you read Craven's Last Hunt?
No. But I also have not read a lot of Spider-Man comics, so
Have you
I
read
think you
the
would really
one?
like Craven's Last Hunt.
I probably would.
Yeah.
What's
give it a
the
shot.
Spider-Man one? One Last Wish or something, where Mary Jane and Peter Parker make a deal with
Yeah.
Mephisto
One
or
more
something.
day, I think.
Yeah, One More Day.
Yeah.
I've heard about that one. That's funny.
As someone who played the first one this year and most of Miles Morales,
Mm-hmm.
I do have to wonder, Ryan, because obviously there's the game being kind of glitchy.
Mhm.
There's the whole thing with it having gender-neutral Spanish for some reason,
Yeah.
and then selling it to native Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I have to wonder if part of the issue was just fatigue. Because, like, there was a point where I got towards the end of, like, the post-game in the base game of the 2018 game,
Mm-hmm.
where I was just like, okay, I've got to stop, like, 3 more crimes or whatever, and I've got to do 1 more safe house, and I've got to go find whatever. And then after that, there were the 3 DLC episodes with Hammerhead. Then there was Miles Morales. And like after a while, it just felt like, oh, okay, I'm done now. Which is why I didn't play the second one this year, even though it was like one of the biggest games of the year. It was just like, after playing the first 2 games, I was just like tapped out. Okay, I get it now. Like, I don't need more of this for a while.
Because for me, I didn't play the DLC episodes from the first one. I didn't even play Miles Morales. So I was literally
They got
going...
Futaba to play Black Cat.
Oh, shit.
Didn't she get canceled this year for complaining about people using AI to recreate her voice or something?
Somebody did.
This is news to
Some
me.
voice actor. I remember that. Somebody did.
What was her name? Erin Fitzgerald? She was also Peppermint. I can't remember her name right now.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'll
You're
level
going
with
to have to
you.
edit that out, Michael. I tried to open my granola bar and it exploded.
But
I
no,
was trying to make as least amount of noise as possible, and the opposite
I
happened.
heard nothing, so you're good, my man. Her name is Erica Lindbeck.
Oh, yeah. She
I'm
was Peppermint, now
Yeah.
that I think about it.
who's
I'm
Peppermint?
pretty sure someone used AI to recreate her voice, so she tweeted, "Hey, please don't do that," and then a bunch of AI tech bro jackoffs swarmed her mentions, and she had to delete her account or something.
What the fuck?
No, I do remember this now, yeah.
No.
Peppermint Ryan was in Hi-Fi Rush.
Oh. Okay.
Opposite Roger Craig Smith as her brother. Spoilers.
Yeah. For Sonic fans, Roger Craig Smith is the villain. I'm sure you get a kick out of that.
No, I certainly did. Like, he was good in that game.
He's
As,
really good as...
We'll talk more about that
What's his name?
probably in part 2.
Yeah.
So, anything else to say about Spider-Man, Spooderman?
King. Because I know.
I mean,
You're you're more positive on this game. So like, if there's anything like you want to say, like by all means.
I like the black suit a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I've always liked the black suit, so I don't know. But I think that you get, like, there's a certain thrill to it when you get to play as the black suit, and I think that they fulfill the fantasy
I felt
pretty
it.
damn well. They fulfill the fantasy pretty damn well with the black suit.
Mm-hmm.
I also like how they let you keep those powers. I'll keep that as vague as possible. I think that's really rad.
Would
And
you
I
call
think
it
that
based
generally
even?
I like how the dual protagonist setup goes in terms of theming and stuff.
Mhm.
And I think that they pull off their story decently well, with the exception of the endgame feeling a bit rushed. Yet I will say that the final boss was sick as fuck.
I
was
can appreciate the King in Black imagery.
I can appreciate it as well, although I wish that Marvel or whoever is in charge of crediting would credit the people who made Venom,
Yeah.
the Venom run, that they were inspired by.
If you have not read The King in Black, read it. It's so good. It's Venom leading the Avengers and the X-Men against a symbiote invasion. And it's fucking rad, and it's metal, and I want a tattoo from King in Black.
So
good.
it's like Odo helping the Federation during the Dominion War.
I don't know what that is.
It's a Star Trek reference.
I'm not a fucking nerd, Michael. Now
Here
talk
I
to me
am,
about this
say-
video game.
Here I am wearing my Star Trek shirt talking about Star Trek, and you don't know what I'm talking about?
That's right, Mike. Isn't that funny that like you're the Star or you're the Star Wars? Whoa, you're the Star Trek guy, and also so is Mike Stacklasa. He's the Star Trek guy.
I mean, that's what motivated me to try watching the franchise.
Oh shit, are you the Mike Stacklasa? How do you pronounce his last name? Oh my god, help.
Stoklasa. I
Yeah.
think it's Polish.
Are you that for our podcast?
First of all, I don't laugh hysterically at the elderly. But speaking of which, like, I guess I'll make a quick mention of this before I move on to Born of Bread. I watched over 400 episodes of Star Trek this year. I watched the entirety of Deep Space Nine, the entirety of Voyager, the entirety of Enterprise, and 2 seasons of Next Gen this year, and 2 of the movies. So I watched a lot of Star Trek this year. It's not a game, but it's something I spent a lot of my time this past year doing. All right, Born of Bread. Now, neither of you heard of this game.
Exo, I need to know. Is this game good? Does this game rise to your expectations?
Well, that would be the yeast of my worries.
Hey, don't try to top me, Michael.
I'd like to.
Oh.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
You walked right into that one, my friend.
I did. All right, you get the medal. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah, Born of Bread. Now, King, you played Bug Fables, right?
Yes.
And you would agree that that game was pretty darn good, right?
Yes.
Born of Bread is kind of a similar idea, and there's also this game called Flint Buckler or something. I think they changed the name recently. And then there's this game called The Outbound Ghost, which I did not play, but apparently was disappointing. These are all like Paper Mario likes, like games taking inspiration from the first 2 Paper Mario games.
Yes.
Which I am all in favor of because those games are both good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, Bug Fables, I think, did a pretty good job of recreating what worked about those games while still being its own thing, and also really channeling the atmosphere and spirit of 64 especially. Like, the soundtrack has kind of like a chintzy MIDI sound to it that kind of reminds me of the 64 game. Whereas with Born of Bread, like, I wish listed it like some time ago. I probably saw an ad on Twitter or something, like a tweet, when Paper Mario trends for the 500th time. It seems like every day on X/Twitter, Paper Mario is trending. And it's always people arguing about whether Origami King or Super Paper Mario are good. So, like, I wish listed it like a year ago. Then all of a sudden I got an email from Steam saying, like, Born of Bread is now available for purchase. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's a Paper Mario type game that I wish listed and forgot about. I'll play this because this is probably good. It looks good. It's an Unreal Engine 4 game, so it looks nice. Because, like, if I have any nitpicks about Bug Fables, the graphics aren't, you know, like, masterful or anything. They're fine.
Yeah.
But the sprite work in this game is pretty good. And that's kind of my review, is that everything about this game is more or less good, except the combat, which is frankly how I describe the last 3 Paper Mario games, except maybe Sticker Star, where it's like the interesting stuff in Origami King is the overworld, and then the battles are okay.
Yeah.
Whereas this game actually has, how to describe this? First of all, the story never really comes together. Thematically, it's about abuse and trying to live up to the expectations of an abusive parent, which I think was the plot of Pokemon Sun and Moon. I don't know, I never finished it.
Actually, surprisingly, yes, it is part of Sun and Moon's plot.
And you play as like a bread golem, or dough golem, like this baker guy makes a living bread man, and then he goes on an adventure with some friends to stop these resurrected punks from an ancient kingdom. He wants to bring back their old kingdom, this long-lost civilization, and the leader of this group is a prince who wants to please his emperor father, who was never like satisfied with him and was always angry with him. And so you're racing around the world to find the pieces of this MacGuffin before they can. And then it just sort of abruptly ends. It felt like there should have been like one more chapter, or at least a bigger final dungeon, but the final dungeon is like one room that you fight 2 easy bosses and then the game's just done. And then aliens show up. I'm not making this up. That literally happens. And then it just cuts to credits. So the story wasn't very good. The level design is pretty decent, but it's not as good as anything in Origami King or Color Splash or even really the first 2 Paper Mario games. There's more of a focus on side quests, and there's like a detailed quest log system to help you keep track of all that stuff, and most of those were fun. Like the side content was where I found myself having the most fun, even though I'm not a super big fan of backtracking, but in an RPG like this, it's okay. And they improved on the fast travel system from the Paper Mario games where you don't have to go all the way down to the sewers to travel to other places or whatever. There's just like a warp feature. But kind of like there's this really fun chapter where you go to a haunted cottage in like a snowy forest and there's like ghosts and stuff. I think there was a part like that in Paper Mario Sticker Star, but I only played the game the one time. But really the problem is just the battle system. Like, it reminds me of an experience I had where I tried to mod chess for a symmetric strategy game. And like, I basically added ranged combat to chess and it broke it in half. Mm-hmm. And I've always remembered that experience because it just goes to show like chess is designed the way it is for a reason. All of the rules are there in response to, I don't know, eventualities that the designer worked out, or, you know, designers as the case may be. Like, when you take elements from Paper Mario and just change them haphazardly and swap them around, it doesn't really work that well. Like, basically what I'm saying is everything they changed from Paper Mario to try to make the game more unique made it worse. There's this convoluted elemental system with like 6 elemental archetypes in it, where the weakness circle doesn't really make sense. So you basically have to have this badge on the whole time that tells you what the weakness is. And then if you hit an enemy with their weakness, they die almost immediately. Whereas if you hit them with something that isn't their weakness, it does no damage. There's this system where, because like how it works in Paper Mario, like the 1,000-Year Door, is you collect shine sprites and you go to Merlon's hut, and then the character levels up, they get extra health, and they unlock a new move. And you can do that like twice, I think. In this game, how it works is you find the equivalent of star pieces, you talk to an NPC that shows up everywhere, they give you skill points, and then you spend them on moves. And each character has like 13 moves, but there are like 3 tiers of moves, and you can only equip one at a time. And all of these characters don't have a 0 FP type move, if you know what I mean, King.
No.
If you equip something on the lowest tier that costs magic points to use, essentially, and you run out of magic, then that character just can't attack. And each of the moves on those tiers have their own elemental archetype. So if you try to pick something balanced, you might end up in a situation where the character can't really do anything.
No.
The mouse and keyboard support, because like, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I played the entirety of Sea of Stars in Omori with a mouse and keyboard, including the fucking shmup section at the end, so that was fun. And I tried to do that with Born of Bread, but this game has no keyboard customization at all, and everything is mapped to the wrong place. So you have to use both the arrow keys and WASD and the mouse, and you can't rebind any of it. So eventually I had to switch to controller just to be able to get through it. The characters aren't very interesting. Like, thinking back to, like, Admiral Bobbery from Thousand Year Door has a very clear, defined backstory, and it takes a lot of convincing to get him to come with you on the ship, and then eventually to get him to join your party. In this game, you just sort of stumble across characters, and they're like, hey, you should join our party. Okay. And then it moves on. And I know they felt kind of underwritten. And I don't know, it's just the game is really short. There's only like, imagine if Thousand Year Door was like half the length it was, and the Palace of Shadow was like one room, and then the Shadow Queen boss was like over in like 2 minutes. And that's kind of what the game was. It was disappointing, in my opinion. I know some people don't like Bug Fables. At least I saw at least one person in my Twitter mentions call it mid. And like, fair enough. If you didn't like the game, you didn't like the game.
I think the game's definitely pretty jank. But like,
sure.
I think that game definitely captures the spirit of Paper Mario.
Yeah.
And is its own thing.
Like, that game has a solid combat engine that has a good... It only has the 3 characters and you have them right away, but that means you get the whole game to develop all 3 of them.
Yeah.
They have clearly defined personalities. The story has a nice sense of progression to it.
And I think it's the theming around bug civilization in a backyard is extremely good.
Like, one of the areas is
lot.
literally just a sandbox, but it's a desert.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. That game is super memorable, and it has a really good soundtrack. Like,
it does, yeah.
Born of Bread just doesn't really have any of that. Like, the soundtrack's okay, it looks nice, it's perfectly playable, though it is kind of buggy, at least when I played it. There's a time where I slept at an inn, and my character got stuck trying to open the door back out in an automated animation. I don't know, the game's... It just felt like, it just wasn't that good. Sorry to say, like, I don't like punching down on indie devs, because I'm sure they worked really hard. This is a game that reeks of passion. Like, I know they tried their hardest and they wanted it to be good, but I just wasn't really that impressed with it, unfortunately. So, that's Born of Bread.
Sounds breadful.
You already did that one. That was redundant. And yes, there are in fact a ton of bread puns in this game. So,
nice.
All right. What other disappointing games do you have, Ryan?
That's it.
All right, then there's one more. There's one more I want to get to real quick, and I won't spend too much time on this because I didn't finish it. You guys remember Assassin's Creed?
Never heard of it.
I do.
Because, like, I realized earlier this year that, holy shit, that was one of the biggest gaming franchises of the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was considered a AAA IP. People looked forward to its releases. Its Ezio trilogy got, like, rave reviews. And then at some point, like, this is one of my Uno rabbit holes, but, like, people just stopped playing it. Everybody did. Nobody has played an Assassin's Creed game in like 10 years.
Hell yeah. Except for my dad. I know for a fact my dad played Valhalla or whatever it was called because I watched him do it.
Oh my god. The last thing I remember of the franchise was seeing a trailer for the Egypt game Origins, I think, at an E3 show. By the way, E3 is done. I think we live in...
this new Assassin's Creed was in Egypt. Where's this one in?
Baghdad, Iraq,
yeah.
or the territory that would currently be considered Iraq. But basically, I realized, I remember the earlier games being good. I think I got all the way up to, I played all of them except the first one, and I got to 3, and I got to a part where you're supposed to spring Ben Franklin from prison or something in the third one, and I dropped it. And then I just never thought about the franchise again until now, and I realized, like, wow, those games were sure good. I would like to try another one, see what what the fuck are they even doing with this franchise 10 years later? So I picked up Assassin's Creed Mirage, and I both remembered why I liked this franchise and why I stopped, if that makes sense. Because it's like, this is a really cool premise where like you get to wander around these historical cities, interact with historical figures. There's like a, not convoluted, but a intricate plot to follow with all these characters and all these pieces. There's this ongoing war with the Templars. I don't even know what the fuck they're doing with the modern day plot line, or if that's even a part of these games anymore, because like I heard Desmond died in like the third game or something, and then the ghost lady from the first Civilization died in a comic at some point between games, so it's completely fucked, and all you get is like a monologue from Desmond's father before the historical stuff starts, so there isn't really any modern day stuff in this game. I've heard that the controls are stiff compared to some of the middle entries, like Syndicate or Unity or whatever. I never played any of those. Supposedly it was in an effort to make it more like the earlier entries, but apparently it's stiffer than even those. I don't really remember because I haven't played them in so long, and Ubisoft makes it hard to play these games in the first place. Like I had to make a fucking Ubisoft Connect account just to play the game that I'd already bought.
Love that. Thanks, Ubisoft.
Because they need to have their own convoluted achievement system bolted on top of what's already on the PS5. Cool premise. I like the main character. His name is Basim, and he's like a charming protagonist. Starts out as a thief. There's a accident with the Khalifa, and then he has to go into hiding, and he joins the precursor to the assassins, the hidden ones. There's a mentor character who's like an aged woman with a really deep voice, which I thought was a really inspired choice, honestly. I've never seen that before for a mentor character. But it's like there was kind of a cool prison break sequence in the early game. But kind of where I stopped was I got to the first assassination, and it reminded me of how buggy and kind of janky these games could be. And apparently that has not changed, because like the assassination takes place in this marketplace. You got to get this guy to come out by making a distraction so you can jump up and get a stealth kill on him, basically. And there's a couple different ways you can make this distraction, which is a cool idea. I ended up bringing this guy some spices that got stolen, and then he's like, okay, follow me into the market, and I'm going to make a bunch of noise so the guy comes out. I'm like, okay. You have to follow him, otherwise he won't move. But he goes right past two guards who will immediately attack you if you try to walk between them. So you have to go out of your way to kill these two guards, which creates a huge uproar at this market. Then you have to tear down a bunch of posters to get your wanted level down, or whatever the hell it's called, and then follow this guy all the way into the market. And it just feels like they didn't think this through. There's no reason that this NPC shouldn't be able to move independently of me, you know? And I kept getting caught because I wanted to be sneaking cool about it and do it without, you know, getting caught. But after a while, like the game was just so janky about the guard AI that I just couldn't play the game that way. So I just kind of had to put up with that. And like after that point, I was just like, yeah, do I really want to keep playing this? There's so many other games out this year. So I just kind of stopped. Is it a horrible game? It has production values. It looks nice on the PS5. I didn't play it on PC though, because Ubisoft has a policy where they, like in their EULA, they say that they're allowed to spy on your RAM while you're playing their games.
I just wanted to play Uno.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a game nobody has ever played. Just like the more recent Assassin's Creed.
We're the only people who've ever played Uno.
Yes.
Wait, did we play Uno?
Well, nobody's ever played Uno.
Yeah, so how can we play Uno if nobody's played it?
Exactly. So that's Assassin's Creed Mirage. Don't have too much to say about it. What I played of it was alright, and supposedly it was an attempt to return to the series' roots. Because apparently Valhalla is like a whole ass RPG, Western type RPG.
Yeah, I think it started with the Assassin's Creed game that took place with Greek mythology. Or was it
Odyssey?
Was it? Yeah. Wait, no. Was it Greek or was it Rome?
Well, the Odyssey is Greek, so
okay.
I assume it's Greek.
I'm going to say Greek. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I don't care. Because I heard it wasn't very good. If you're wrong,
you know what? I'm going to edit into the video.
Do it.
I'm pretty sure Rome was already in Brotherhood. So
Oh yeah, the
It
best
probably was
Assassin's
Greek.
Creed game from my recollection.
I do love Brotherhood.
Nah, the best Assassin's Creed was the one that was on the DS. That's the best one.
Hell yeah.
That's the other thing
I
is
had that game.
that's part of why I fell off is there were so many fucking games all at once. They just milked the series into oblivion.
Mm-hmm.